Welcome to the second in the series of Getting Started with Grails screencasts. In the previous installment, I created the Pomodoro application with its task and tag domain model, and then added a scaffolded user interface for it. Now, scaffolding is a great way to create a user interface quickly, but it's rarely a good basis for an end product. It is better suited as a way of allowing you to interact with the underlying data while building out the real user interface, and it is also commonly used for administrative interfaces. You can also customize the scaffolding. To find out more, check out Chapter 16 of the user guide. For our Pomodoro application, the scaffolding is definitely not sufficient. So in this screencast, I will start the process of creating a customized UI for the application. Initially, I will concentrate on the main page, for which I have a mock-up here. The idea is to show a list of tasks and a sidebar on the right that allows the user to filter by task status and by tag. So, where do we start? Well, adding a new page is as simple as creating a new controller action and optionally a corresponding view. I'll begin by adding an action called index to my task controller. Even though the controller is involved in scaffolding, I can supplement it with my own actions. I can even override the actions provided by the scaffolding. The new action is declared as a simple property with an empty closure, denoted by the curly braces, as its value. The name of the property represents the logical name of the action. I already have the server running, so let's try to access the new page in the browser. Note how the URL matches the pattern of logical controller name, followed by the name of the action. Also, the index action is rather special in that if you leave it out of the URL, it is invoked by default. As you can see, we get an error about a missing index.jsp file. This is slightly confusing because most Grails views have a .gsp extension. However, it makes sense when you realize that Grails will look for a JSP file if it can't find the expected GSP. To resolve this error, we need to create an index.gsp file for our action, because Grails expects a view that has the same base name as the name of the action. This is one of its conventions. So where does the view file go? It goes under Grails app/views inside a directory that is named after the controller. In this particular case, task. So we first create the task directory and then add the index.gsp file. The first cut of the index page is going to be a mock-up using mostly static HTML. But to simplify the layout, I'm going to use a CSS framework called Blueprint, which has a corresponding Grails plugin. You can find out more about it by going to the plugin portal on the grails.org website. Here I simply search for the plugin by its name, Blueprint, and then select the matching result. Before I can install the plugin, I have to stop the server. Once that's done, I can simply run the command install plugin and then the name of the plugin, Blueprint. And once that's ready, I restart the server and can start work on the view. The basic content of this view is plain HTML, but there are several points of interest. First, we use a GSP tag provided by the Blueprint plugin. It has a blueprint prefix, which is the namespace for the tag, followed by a colon and then the name of the tag itself. This particular tag ensures that all static resources required by the plugin, such as CSS files, are included in the page. Second, see how we can embed groovy expressions in the view using the $curly brace notation. These expressions can appear in tag attributes or anywhere else in the HTML content. In this particular case, we are using a common technique to reference a standard GSP tag, resource, as if it were a method. Basically, the tag attributes become named arguments in the method call. You can find out more on all the standard Grails GSP tags in the user guide. It gives usage and examples for each one of them. The last thing I have to do is create a CSS file for the view. This goes in webapp/css. The directory already contains another CSS file, main.css, but that is used by the scaffolding. That's why the main application is using its own one. The contents of the CSS file don't really matter at this point in time, so I'll just refresh the browser. And there's the initial version of our Pomodoro application. What next? Ideally, we want to show some real data in the page. That means displaying a list of tasks and corresponding tags. The standard way to handle this scenario is to retrieve the required data within the controller action and pass it to the view father model. Hence, Grails is by default an MVC framework. For this second iteration, I want to fetch all open tasks in order of deadline. I also want to display all the available tags in the sidebar, so I need to fetch those as well. Let's start by finding all tasks that have a status of open. I write the name of the class I'm searching for, task, and then call the method findAllByStatus, where status is the name of the property I want to query on. Note that its first letter is capitalized in this instance. I then pass the value of the status I'm interested in, the value of the criterion in other words, and finally I pass a second argument containing a map of options to control the sort order. Fetching the tags is even simpler because I want all of them. Again, I start with the class that I'm searching for, this time tag, but now I call the method list, which accepts the sort options as named arguments, which look like a literal map, but without the square brackets. One important point to understand and remember is that both the findAllBy and list methods are called on the class, not an instance of the class. They are what are known as static methods. Once I have my lists of tasks and tags, I can make them available to the view by returning them in a map from the action. This map is the model for the view. Note that the map keys don't have to match the local variables I declared. They could be open tasks and all tags, for example, but it's not uncommon for them to be the same. That's it for the action, so it's now time to move on to the view and actually display these tasks and tags. Let's start with the list of tags, since that's pretty straightforward. I want to display the tag names, so that means I need to iterate over the collection of tags that's in the model. This can be accomplished with the each GSP tag. You pass it the collection you want to iterate over via the in attribute, and then put the markup you want to repeat inside the tag body. It's also good practice to declare an explicit variable name by which each element of the collection can be accessed from the tag body. It's important to use a groovy expression inside the tag's in attribute. In this case, I just specify the name of the model variable containing the collection. Be aware that the variable name comes from the map key specified in the action, not the local variable with that same name. Inside the body of the each tag, I just want to render a single li element containing the tag name. Again, I can use a simple groovy expression to access the current list element via the tag variable and write the value of its name property to the page. Let's see what effect this has had on the running application. An error. As the message says, it can't find the property status on the task class. This error page also tells us where the error occurred, line 7 of task controller. If we go there, we can see that it's the findAllByStatus line that's the problem. Taking a quick look at the task domain class, we can see that it doesn't have a status property, just like the error message said. So I'll stop the server because I'm changing a domain class. Quickly add status as a string property. And then make sure it can only contain either open or done. I must also update the bootstrap because the task we create there doesn't satisfy the new constraint. After restarting the server, we can see that the error disappears and the page displays our two tags. Displaying the list of tasks can be done in a similar way, but because each task has a moderately complex layout, I'm going to take advantage of Grails partial templates this time. Partial templates are GSP fragments that can be used from any page. To create one, we simply add a GSP file to the views directory and give the file name an underscore prefix. The underscore is how Grails differentiates a partial template from a view. In this particular case, I'm adding the partial template inside the task subfolder because it is specifically related to rendering tasks. Within the GSP, we insert the markup for rendering a task. The elements and styles don't matter to this tutorial, but notice how we refer to a task variable inside the various Groovy expressions. Where does that variable come from? It's certainly not provided by the view model. To answer that, let's go back to the view, which is where we want to use the partial template. In our index.jsp, we have access to a list of tasks. We want to render the partial template for each one of those tasks, so we use another standard GSP tag called render. We specify the partial template to use via the template attribute, what we want to apply the partial to, in this case the collection of tasks, and the variable we want each collection element to be available as within the partial template, task in this case. The tag also allows you to apply the partial to a single object by providing it as the value to a bean attribute instead of the collection attribute. An important point to note is that you must never include the underscore in the render tag's template attribute. In other words, a partial template name has neither an underscore prefix nor a .gsp suffix. That's it. We'll just finish off by adding some styles to app.css. And then we reload the page in the browser and can see our list of tasks. In case you're wondering where these 3 tasks came from, I modified the bootstrap to create 2 extra ones. That's all for this screencast. You have now seen how the basics of controller actions and views work, and we've started on the road to developing a custom user interface for the Pomodoro application. Next time, I'll show you how easy it is to add custom tags for use in your own GSPs. It will then be time to make the application multi-user aware by adding security to it. So until next time, goodbye.